It is small enough to fit in the palm of your hand, wrapped in fragile layers of dry, papery skin. Yet for thousands of years, this single underground bulb has commanded the attention of empires. The moment its surface is broken, everything changes. A violent chemical reaction triggers within its cells, unleashing an unmistakable, pungent aroma that divides human senses instantly. This is not just a flavor. It is a sophisticated defense mechanism, a volatile chemical weapon designed to ward off predators, fungi, and rot in the wild. Yet, what was designed to repel nature became the exact reason humans fell in love with it. Across every inhabited continent, this potent sulfurous chemistry was welcomed directly into the fire. But garlic was never universally adored. For centuries, it carried a social stigma, labeled coarse, vulgar, and unfit for the refined palates of the ruling classes.
To the working poor, however, it was life itself, a cheap, potent source of stamina, a reliable preservative, and an accessible shield against disease when real medicine did not exist. Long before science could map its chemistry, ancient folklore had already assigned it supernatural power. Hung over doorways and worn around necks, it was treated as a spiritual barrier. It was the world's first universal antibiotic. From the banks of the Nile to the foothills of the Himalayas, healers recognized that garlic possessed an innate ability to fight corruption within the human body. When the pyramids rose, garlic fueled the labor. Ancient records reveal that rations of garlic and onions were so vital that work stopped when supplies ran dry. Roman generals fed it to their legions before battle, believing it instilled raw courage, physical endurance, and purified the blood of men marching into foreign lands.
Through mountain passes and vast deserts, garlic traveled along the oldest trade routes in human history, carried by merchants, nomads, and pilgrims who refused to journey without it. In the East, it was harmonized with ginger and pepper, becoming a foundational cornerstone of traditional medicine and culinary philosophy, balancing heat, energy, and vitality. Today, that single wild bulb has exploded into a multi-billion-dollar global agricultural industry, harvested by the hundreds of millions of tons each year. It sits quietly on every grocery shelf across the globe, so ubiquitous, so common, that we have forgotten how extraordinary its survival truly is. How did a pungent, wild mountain weed from the isolated steppes of Central Asia cross every cultural divide, conquer every global empire, and embed itself into the very fabric of human civilization? This is the forgotten story of the world's most powerful bulb.
To uncover where this plant began, we must travel back thousands of years before written language, to the forbidding mountain corridors of Central Asia. This is the wild ancestor, Allium longicuspis. It did not grow in lush riverbeds or sheltered forests, but in harsh, unforgiving scree fields where only the most resilient flora could survive. The secret to its survival lay hidden beneath the surface. While grazing animals stripped the mountain grasses bare, this underground reservoir of nutrients remained protected, armed with sharp, defensive chemicals. For early nomadic bands wandering the foothills of the Tien Shan and Pamir mountains, foraging was a game of survival. Every root, tuber, and bulb was tested against starvation. The initial encounter was a shock to the senses. It produced a heat without fire, a sharp, burning intensity that cleared the lungs and lingered on the breath for hours.
When exposed to the heat of the hearth, The harsh sulfur broke down into rich, complex sugars. The pungent deterrent transformed into sustained nourishment and a powerful companion to preserved meat. Here lies one of the greatest botanical mysteries. Cultivated garlic lost the ability to produce viable seeds. It could no longer spread itself across the wilderness. Its survival became entirely tied to human hands. Without people to split its bulbs and press individual cloves into the soil each season, domesticated garlic would have vanished from the face of the earth. In return for their care, the plant provided early agriculturalists with a crop of unmatched reliability, bursting through the cold soil long before other staples had even germinated. Through centuries of unconscious selection, early farmers transformed the meager wild root into a heavy, clustered powerhouse of energy, flavor, and medicine.
As steppe pastoralists mounted horses and drove herds across thousands of miles of open grassland, garlic went with them. It was the ideal trail ration, lightweight, durable, and immune to rot. At ancient trading hubs in Bactria and Sogdiana, the bulb crossed cultural thresholds. It was no longer just local sustenance. It had become a recognized commodity of trade. Flowing southward through mountain passes, it arrived in the sophisticated urban centers of the Indus Valley civilization, finding a permanent home in early Ayurvedic health practices. By the 3rd millennium BCE, garlic appeared in humanity's earliest written records. In Mesopotamia, Sumerian scribes etched its name onto clay tablets, cataloging its distribution from royal storehouses. In a world without refrigeration, garlic was an indispensable shield against food spoilage. Its potent antimicrobial oils slowed bacterial decay, keeping vital meat rations edible through long, dry seasons.
Sumerian and Babylonian medical texts praised its power to soothe digestive pain, treat skin infections, and drive away internal parasites, codifying its role as one of humanity's earliest medicinal therapies. It graced the banquets of kings as both a luxury and a digestive aid, proving that the pungent mountain weed had successfully crossed the barrier from survival food to high culinary art. Westward, the bulb marched, carried across arid trade corridors by merchants who recognized that every civilization they encountered was eager to purchase this miracle root. By the time it reached the Mediterranean coast, garlic had become an essential staple of daily commerce, agricultural life, and regional diplomacy. But its greatest chapter was about to begin. As trade ships carried the bulb into the fertile valley of the Nile, garlic was about to enter the most powerful, grand, and mythic empire the ancient world had ever seen.
When the Nile flooded each summer, it left behind a layer of rich black silt. In this fertile mud, ancient Egypt cultivated one of the most revered crops in its agricultural arsenal. Sown along the floodplain, garlic flourished in the Egyptian climate, quickly growing from simple cloves into an indispensable resource for an indispensable kingdom. For the thousands of laborers who carved and stacked the pyramids, garlic was not a condiment, it was daily fuel, prized for its ability to sustain physical energy. Raw garlic provided workers with a surge of stamina and vital defense against heat exhaustion and infectious diseases rampant in massive labor camps. Centuries later, the Greek historian Herodotus recorded that an inscription on the Great Pyramid detailed 1,600 silver talents spent solely on garlic, onions, and radishes for the workforce.
So vital was this bulb to the working class that when rations failed to arrive during the reign of Ramesses III, history's first recorded labor strike erupted. Royal tomb builders downed their tools and marched on royal granaries, refusing to resume work on the pharaoh's eternal tomb until their garlic, grain, and supplies were restored.
the state yielded. Royal storehouses were opened, delivering thousands of fresh bulbs to the artisans, proving that even the absolute power of the pharaoh depended on maintaining the strength of his workforce. Beyond labor, garlic was Egypt's premier medicine. In the Ebers Papyrus, one of the world's oldest medical texts, garlic is featured in 22 distinct healing formulas. Egyptian physicians prescribed crushed garlic to treat circulatory disorders, soothe respiratory distress, neutralize insect stings, and prevent infections in open surgical wounds.
So revered were its preservative properties that garlic accompanied the elite into death. Embalmers placed whole bulbs within mummies to protect sacred flesh from physical and spiritual decay. Amulets shaped like garlic cloves were buried with nobles, serving as eternal talismans meant to ward off evil spirits and ensure safe passage through the underworld. When the tomb of King Tutankhamun was sealed, baskets of garlic were placed around his sarcophagus, provisions deemed essential for a king's journey into eternity. More than 3,000 years later, when archaeologist Howard Carter opened the tomb in 1922, he found those exact garlic bulbs preserved in the pristine silence of the desert tomb. Their papery skins had dried, but their structures remained intact, a silent testament to garlic's deep roots in the spiritual and physical world of the Nile. Garlic was held in such high moral standing that citizens swore solemn court oaths by invoking its name, holding a bulb in hand as a pledge of absolute honesty. In common households, mothers hung garlic garlands over cradles, believing the potent aroma created an invisible barrier against harmful spirits and evening fevers. From royal tombs to peasant huts, garlic was consumed daily, often mashed into thick barley beer and spread over coarse bread, a union of sustenance and preventative health. Empires rose and crumbled along the Nile, but the garlic fields remained constant, outlasting pharaohs, dynasties, and kingdoms. As merchant ships set sail from Egyptian ports, they carried this sacred bulb across the Mediterranean, preparing to introduce its power to the rising empires of Greece and Rome. As maritime trade networks tied the ancient Mediterranean together, garlic arrived on Greek shores. It was immediately embraced by two opposing pillars of Greek society, the athletic arena and the temple of medicine. Long before modern sports pharmacology, Greek athletes consumed raw garlic as one of history's earliest performance-enhancing stimulants, using its fiery bite to boost endurance and respiratory power before competing. At the sanctuaries of Asclepius, priests prescribed garlic for pulmonary afflictions and intestinal cleansing, embedding the plant firmly into the foundations of Greek medical philosophy. Hippocrates codified its use, recommending garlic as a potent laxative, a diuretic, and a primary defense against abdominal tumors and respiratory congestion, famously declaring that food should be medicine. Yet the Greeks maintained a complex relationship with the bulb. While revered as medicine, its overpowering odor was deemed vulgar. Anyone who had eaten garlic was strictly forbidden from entering the sacred temple of Cybele. Across the Ionian Sea, a new power was rising, one that harbored no such reservations. To the expanding Roman military machine, garlic was nothing short of strategic necessity. Every Roman soldier carried garlic in his personal kit. In an army that conquered through relentless endurance and rapid road marches, garlic was the cornerstone of the soldier's daily ration. They prepared moridum, a pungent, calorie-dense spread of crushed garlic, herbs, cheese, and olive oil eaten with hard bread, fueling the men who built roads, dug trenches, and held the frontiers. Roman commanders believed garlic inflamed the martial spirit. Dedicated to Mars, the god of war,
It was fed to soldiers before battle to eradicate fear, purge internal weakness, and harden their resolve. Below decks on Roman warships, rowers were fed regular garlic rations to ward off typhus, purify drinking water, and survive the suffocating, pathogen-ridden air of the galley depths.
The Greek military physician Dioscorides, serving with the Roman army, documented garlic's comprehensive medical catalog in his masterwork De Materia Medica, designating it as the ultimate remedy for snake bites, parasitic worms, and arterial congestion. Later, Galen hailed garlic as the rustic's theriac, a universal antidote accessible to the common man, possessing hot and dry properties capable of neutralizing cold toxins and internal infections. Roman agronomists like Columella and Pliny the Elder wrote extensive manuals on its commercial farming, instructing estate owners how to plant, cure, and store massive garlic yields for civic and military consumption. Pliny cataloged over 61 distinct medical remedies derived from garlic in his Natural History, declaring that there was scarcely any disease known to man that the pungent bulb could not alleviate. Yet within the marbled dining halls of the Roman elite, a stark divide emerged. Patricians mocked garlic as peasant food, a vulgar, foul-smelling weed fit only for slaves, gladiators, and common soldiers.
The poet Horace famously penned an entire ode cursing garlic, calling it a poison more deadly than hemlock, and praying that any woman he loved would refuse his kisses if he ever ate it again. But among the gladiators of the arena, such delicate aristocratic sensibilities meant nothing. They consumed garlic in massive quantities to fortify their muscles and quicken their reflexes for combat. Wherever the Roman legions marched, garlic followed. Across Gaul, Hispania, and the wind-swept northern border of Britannia, soldiers planted cloves around their forts, permanently altering the ecology of Europe. Long after Roman garrisons abandoned their outposts, the garlic they planted remained rooted in foreign soil, naturalizing into local landscapes and becoming an enduring legacy of imperial expansion. As the Western Roman Empire fractured and collapsed into ruins, the bulb did not disappear. It retreated into the shadows of medieval forests and monastery gardens, where a dark new chapter of superstition and folklore awaited.
When the classical world dissolved into chaos, botanical knowledge survived within the walls of Christian monasteries. Monks tended the sacred bulb, viewing it as a divine remedy against both disease and moral corruption. Under Charlemagne, garlic became state law. The emperor's royal decree, the Capitulare Divilis, commanded every imperial estate to cultivate garlic, securing its place across medieval European agriculture. But outside monastery walls, fear gripped the medieval imagination. In a world besieged by sudden, invisible plagues and nighttime terrors, garlic morphed from simple food into a potent talisman against the dark. Folklore gave birth to strange myths. Islamic and Eastern European legends whispered that when Satan was cast out of the Garden of Eden, garlic sprouted from the soil touched by his right foot, while onions sprang from his left. Across the Balkans and the Mediterranean, the pungent clove was the supreme defense against the evil eye, a malicious glance believed to wither crops, sour livestock milk, and steal the life from newborn infants.
In Slavic and Romanian lore, the dead did not always rest. The moroi and strigoi, restless, blood-drinking spirits, were believed to rise from their graves, stalking village outskirts under the veil of night. When unexplained sickness swept through a village, graves were opened. Cloves of garlic were stuffed into the mouths of suspected revenants, neutralizing their hunger and binding them to the earth forever. Modern historians now believe the vampire myth was born from rabies and porphyria. Victims suffered severe hypersensitivity to strong odors and light, making the intense sulfur of garlic genuinely unbearable.
The mystic and polymath Hildegard von Bingen recorded garlic in her healing treatise, Physica, advising that raw garlic was superior to cooked, possessing a natural heat capable of purifying congested lungs and cooling fevers. In 1348, the Black Death struck Europe with apocalyptic fury. With no understanding of bacteria or flea-borne vectors, humanity turned desperately to whatever weapons nature offered.
In Slavic and Romanian lore, the dead did not always rest. The moroi and strigoi, restless, blood-drinking spirits, were believed to rise from their graves, stalking village outskirts under the veil of night. When unexplained sickness swept through a village, graves were opened. Cloves of garlic were stuffed into the mouths of suspected revenants, neutralizing their hunger and binding them to the earth forever. Modern historians now believe the vampire myth was born from rabies and porphyria. Victims suffered severe hypersensitivity to strong odors and light, making the intense sulfur of garlic genuinely unbearable. The mystic and polymath Hildegard von Bingen recorded garlic in her healing treatise Physica, advising that raw garlic was superior to cooked, possessing a natural heat capable of purifying congested lungs and cooling fevers. In 1348, the Black Death struck Europe with apocalyptic fury. With no understanding of bacteria or flea-borne vectors, humanity turned desperately to whatever weapons nature offered.
Outcasts and lepers, wandering beyond city walls, relied on wild garlic as both sustenance and topical relief, rubbing crushed cloves directly onto lesions to slow skin rot and bacterial spread. On St. John's Eve, the harvest of garlic was celebrated with bonfires and feasts. Garlands woven on this midsummer night were believed to carry double the supernatural potency, safeguarding homes throughout winter. Through long winters of famine and feudal hardship, garlic pottage was the peasant's staple. It provided warmth, essential trace minerals, and natural antibacterial resistance when protein was non-existent. As Europe emerged from the Middle Ages into the Renaissance, trade networks revived. Garlic moved from rural fields into bustling city markets, shedding its dark, demonic superstitions for broad commercial value. But while Europe had fought off plagues with superstition and faith, the great civilizations of the East had already mastered garlic's culinary and medicinal brilliance across thousands of years of unbroken tradition.
In the 2nd century BCE, the Han dynasty looked west. When imperial envoy Zhang Qian returned from Central Asia, he brought back more than military alliances. He carried the bulb that would revolutionize the Eastern palate. Known as Da Swan, the Great Garlic, this foreign variety was far larger and more potent than native Asian alliums, immediately capturing the fascination of imperial agronomists and palace physicians. Chinese medicine integrated the bulb into its fundamental theory of health. Classified as a powerful warming agent carrying pungent qi, it was prescribed to purge dampness, invigorate stagnant blood, and restore digestion. Centuries later, the great physician Li Shizhen codified its applications in the Compendium of Materia Medica, documenting how garlic neutralized toxins, expelled parasites, and cleared epidemic contagions from the body. The wok became the crucible, where culinary chemistry transformed garlic's raw bite into savory perfume.
In the kitchen, garlic became indispensable. Paired with ginger and scallions, it formed the foundational flavor base for Chinese cooking, using high heat to tame its raw bite into savory sweetness. For the Winter Laba Festival, cloves were sealed in aged black vinegar. Chemical reactions between the sulfur and organic acids transformed the white cloves into luminous jade green, a festive delicacy celebrating longevity and new life. To the north, Mongol horsemen incorporated garlic into their nomadic rations. Dried and pounded into preserved meats, it provided portable stamina, warding off scurvy across thousands of miles of conquest. Meanwhile, in the fertile river valleys of India, the bulb took on a complex dual identity. In Ayurvedic literature, it was known as Lashuna, celebrated for its medicinal power, yet controversial in spiritual practice. Vedic mythology attributed garlic's creation to the churning of the ocean of milk. Droplets of the nectar of immortality fell to earth from a demon's severed neck, imbuing the plant with miraculous healing power and an earthly, passionate taint.
Charaka and Sushruta praised garlic as a supreme rasayana, a rejuvenator capable of building bodily tissues, soothing joint inflammation, improving cardiac vitality, and extending longevity. Yet because it was categorized as rajasic and tamasic, stimulating physical passion and clouding spiritual meditation, garlic was forbidden to yogis, ascetics, and temple priests seeking pure spiritual detachment. But in the royal kitchens of the Mughal Empire, no such spiritual restrictions existed. Chefs combined garlic with rich gravies, nuts, and aromatics, making it the bedrock of North Indian royal cuisine. In the Islamic Golden Age, Persian polymath Avicenna praised garlic in the canon of medicine, designating it as a powerful carminative, a blood purifier, and a reliable remedy against severe animal venoms. Across the Levant, garlic reached its culinary pinnacle in Toum, a masterful emulsion of raw cloves, oil, and citrus whipped into an intense, creamy cloud that accompanied roasted meats and hearthbreads.
At the crossroads of Samarkand and Bukhara, Eastern and Western garlic lineages cross-pollinated through human selection, giving rise to hundreds of specialized subvarieties adapted to every climate. In Korean foundational mythology, garlic holds sacred origin. The bear who endured 100 days eating only mugwort and garlic was rewarded by transforming into a woman, giving birth to Dongun, the founder of the first Korean kingdom. Korea became the highest per capita consumer of garlic on Earth. In the art of kimchi, massive quantities of crushed raw garlic acted as both the essential preservative and the energetic catalyst for probiotic fermentation. In Japan, Buddhist influence suppressed garlic consumption for centuries as spiritually disruptive. Yet, in street stalls and countryside kitchens, it quietly persisted as a folk medicine and vitality tonic known as ninniku, patience. In the tropical heat of Southeast Asia, tiny, thin-skinned purple garlic varieties were used whole, skins and all, pounded with galangal, lemongrass, chilies, and foundational curry pastes that fought tropical digestive bacteria.
Through ancient slow fermentation techniques revived in modern times, heat and humidity transformed raw garlic over 40 days into black garlic, stripping away all pungency and concentrating its antioxidants into sweet, savory black pearls. In the markets of Istanbul, the traditions of East and West merged. Garlic saturated the Ottoman diet, fermenting meats, thickening yogurt sauces, and anchoring the empire's imperial cuisine. Across thousands of miles, Asia and the Middle East proved that garlic was not a single flavor, but an infinitely adaptable culinary chameleon capable of transforming any ingredient it touched. By the late 15th century, European navigators stood on the brink of a new era. As ships prepared to cross uncharted oceans, garlic was loaded aboard as an indispensable military and naval ration. The Old World had mastered the bulb. Now, carried inside the dark holds of Spanish and Portuguese caravels, garlic was about to cross the Atlantic Ocean to conquer the Americas.
As European empires launched their fleets across the Atlantic, the garlic bulb became an essential maritime asset. Immune to mold and resistant to the humidity of a ship's hold, it traveled as living cargo. For naval surgeons on endless voyages, garlic was the first and last line of defense against shipboard epidemics, scurvy, and gangrene,
when supplies of fresh citrus had long turned to rot. Introduced during Columbus's second voyage in 1493, garlic made its Caribbean landfall. Spanish settlers planted it immediately, eager to recreate the familiar agricultural landscapes of home. In the high, mineral-rich volcanic valleys of central Mexico, the plant found an ideal home. It adapted rapidly to the new soil, producing robust bulbs with intense, fiery pungency. Here, two culinary worlds collided. Mesoamerican cooks seamlessly married native tomatoes, chocolate, and fiery chilies with the newly arrived European garlic, creating the rich foundations of Mexican mole.
In the Peruvian Andes, garlic climbed to staggering new heights. Thriving in high-altitude cold, it was adopted by indigenous farmers, cementing its role across South American medicine and cuisine. In Brazil and the Caribbean, enslaved African cooks blended garlic with red palm oil and native peppers. Through their resilience and artistry, they forged vibrant culinary traditions that came to define the Atlantic world. Across the Spanish Caribbean, garlic became the non-negotiable anchor of sofrito, the aromatic engine that gave life to rice, beans, and slow-braised meats across the islands. In North America, English colonists carried garlic to New England. While Puritans used it with culinary restraint, they prized it as an essential autumn tonic to survive brutal winter infections. Native Americans had long foraged native wild alliums like ramps for spring revitalization. When European garlic arrived, it was quickly recognized, traded, and integrated into indigenous medicine bags.
In Great Britain, a profound culinary prejudice took hold. British aristocrats dismissed garlic as a vulgar French affectation, an uncivilized plant that ruined the breath and corrupted English purity. Across the English Channel, French gastronomy embraced the bulb with technical mastery. Chefs categorized garlic as an indispensable aromatic, using butter, wine, and slow heat to unlock its savory elegance. In Provence, it became the undisputed king of the table. Celebrated as the butter of Provence, aioli elevated crushed garlic and olive oil into a cultural emblem of southern French joy and longevity. Across the freezing expanses of Imperial Russia, garlic was common survival armor. Peasant families rubbed raw cloves over rock-hard black rye bread to preserve their health through brutal winters. In the late 19th century, a massive wave of human migration reshaped the globe. Millions of Italian, Eastern European, and Asian families boarded steamships, carrying family garlic strains across the sea.
Passing through Ellis Island, many immigrants smuggled prized cloves in their pockets and coat linings, determined to preserve the botanical heritage of the villages they had left behind forever. In the crowded tenements of New York, immigrants planted cloves in window boxes and fire escape crates. The smell of garlic simmering in olive oil became the unmistakable signature of immigrant neighborhoods. Yet in mainstream America, garlic was met with open prejudice. Immigrant communities were pejoratively labeled garlic eaters, and their traditional foods were mocked as unrefined and foul-smelling. Seeking fertile land, Italian and French immigrant growers moved west to California. In the rich alluvial soil of valleys like Gilroy, they discovered the ultimate Mediterranean climate for large-scale cultivation. Pioneers like the Christopher family transformed California garlic from a specialized ethnic crop into a commercial agricultural powerhouse, laying the groundwork for Gilroy to claim the title of garlic capital of the world.
When modern antiseptics ran out during the horrors of the First World War, the British Army turned back to nature. Thousands of tons of garlic bulbs were purchased by the government to treat trench wounds and prevent gangrene.
During World War II, the Soviet Red Army relied so heavily on garlic to treat battlefield infections that the plant earned a permanent nickname across the Eastern Front: Russian penicillin. As American soldiers returned from European and Pacific theaters, culinary conservatism cracked. The post-war suburban kitchen embraced international cuisine, making garlic a permanent resident in modern cookbooks. Through centuries of global migration, trade, and selective breeding, a solitary wild mountain allium had splintered into hundreds of specialized cultivars, each adapted to distinct human tastes and microclimates. The age of the small-scale garden was ending. In the late 20th century, garlic was about to enter the era of megafarms, globalized supply chains, and industrial factory processing on a scale never before imagined.
By the late 20th century, garlic left the artisan garden behind. It became a high-stakes, industrial commodity, with entire provinces transforming into specialized epicenters of global production. Mechanized harvesters replaced armies of farm laborers. Capable of harvesting dozens of tons per hour, these machines streamlined a harvest process that had remained unchanged since antiquity. Curing became an exact industrial science. Inside massive ventilation warehouses, humidity and temperature are strictly regulated to prevent mold and lock the bulb into long-term dormancy. Manual skill merged with assembly line speed. Millions of bulbs are individually manicured to meet international retail specifications before entering global distribution channels. Advanced optical sorters scan every head in milliseconds. Any bulb bearing the slightest blemish, discoloration, or irregular clove structure is discarded by precision air jets.
For the convenience food sector, high-pressure air cannons strip away the skin in a fraction of a second, processing hundreds of tons of pre-peeled cloves daily for restaurants and industrial kitchens. Sealed under modified nitrogen atmospheres, fresh peeled cloves are frozen in time, halting the enzymatic breakdown of allicin until opened by consumers thousands of miles away. Tons of lower-grade harvests are routed to massive dehydration tunnels. Sliced and dried under precise heat, they form the foundation of a global shelf-stable seasoning empire. Milled into microfine powder, garlic became the invisible workhorse of modern food manufacturing, seasoning snacks, processed meats, and spice blends across every aisle of the modern supermarket. In biotechnology facilities, supercritical carbon dioxide extracts the plant's volatile oils, producing concentrated essential extracts for pharmacology, organic pest control, and dietary supplements. Jarred minced garlic became a staple of modern consumer convenience. Preserved in mild citric acid solutions, it bypassed the cutting board, making garlic accessible to millions of home cooks with zero prep work. The artisan revival seized on modern industrial climate control. Black garlic, once a labor-intensive ancient craft, is now manufactured on a commercial scale for global fine dining markets. The secret to modern trade is the refrigerated cold chain. Kept at exactly -1 degree Celsius, garlic enters a state of suspended animation, allowing it to travel across oceans for months without sprouting. Millions of tons cross the oceans every year. China alone accounts for over 70% of the global export market, supplying supermarkets from North America to Western Europe and Southeast Asia and South America. This flood of cheap global supply sparked intense trade disputes. Domestic growers in the United States and Europe lobbied governments for anti-dumping tariffs, triggering decades of international garlic wars.
The tariffs created an unexpected black market. Smuggling rings diverted millions of dollars in garlic through shell companies and false customs manifests to evade European import duties, proving how lucrative this simple crop had become. In America, garlic transformed into a cultural icon. Events like the Gilroy Garlic Festival drew hundreds of thousands of visitors, celebrating the plant through eccentric food innovations,
including garlic ice cream. Today, consumers can select from half a dozen international garlic varieties on any given afternoon. What was once an exotic foreign root is now an unquestioned permanent resident of the global diet. In response to industrial uniformity, an heirloom revival took root. Small-scale farmers championed historic hardneck strains, preserving biodiversity and celebrating the rich, nuanced flavors of non-industrial agriculture. From roadside food carts to the heights of haute cuisine, garlic stands as the universal equalizer, the single plant that conquered human taste buds on every corner of the planet.
For thousands of years, humanity relied on intuition, observation, and folklore to justify its obsession with garlic. But in the modern era, the plant entered the laboratory, where science began to unravel the mechanics of its ancient reputation. Intact garlic cloves contain no allicin. It is created only when cell walls rupture, allowing the precursor allicin to mix with the enzyme alliinase. In less than 10 seconds, nature's rapid chemical defense system is born.
Allicin is as volatile as it is powerful. It begins degrading the moment it is formed, breaking down rapidly under heat into dozens of secondary sulfur compounds that travel through the human bloodstream. In the cardiovascular system, these sulfur compounds stimulate the production of hydrogen sulfide and nitric oxide, signaling vascular walls to relax, lowering blood pressure, and keeping arterial pathways clear. To microorganisms, allicin is devastating. By attacking vital sulfur-containing enzymes within bacteria, it penetrates cell walls, disabling pathogens without triggering the rapid resistance seen in synthetic antibiotics.
Modern microbiology verified what ancient healers had claimed for millennia. Raw, crushed garlic possesses broad-spectrum antimicrobial, antifungal, and antiviral potency unmatched by nearly any other edible plant. Yet garlic presents a physiological double edge. It is rich in prebiotic fructans, compounds that nourish beneficial gut bacteria, but can cause severe distress and inflammation for those with sensitive digestive systems. The infamous garlic breath does not originate in the mouth. It is systemic. Absorbed into the bloodstream, compounds like allyl methyl sulfide are pumped to the lungs and skin, exiting the body through every breath and pore for up to 48 hours. It came to be known affectionately and derisively as the stinking rose, a title that captured both its botanical elegance and its unapologetic, pervasive pungency. The pharmaceutical industry attempted to tame it, producing millions of odorless garlic capsules. Yet science revealed that processing often destroys the alliinase enzyme, leaving supplements far less effective than the freshly crushed clove.
Today, oncological research investigates garlic's organosulfur compounds for their ability to neutralize carcinogens, stimulate DNA repair, and induce apoptosis in abnormal cells, opening new frontiers in preventative oncology. Yet beyond the clinical data and the laboratory petri dishes, garlic's true dominion remains the kitchen. It does not merely nourish the human body, it commands our senses, transforming humble ingredients into culinary art. Passed down across generations, the cultivation and preparation of garlic remains a living cultural thread, a ritual connecting modern families directly to their ancestors. How did this single, sterile plant, incapable of spreading its own seeds, outlast the greatest empires in history? The answer lies in the unique symbiotic bond it forged with humanity. As we trace the long path of our own history, we find that everywhere humanity went, this remarkable bulb was already there, traveling in our packs, growing in our gardens, and guarding our survival.
Our journey ends where it began, in the isolated, wind-swept mountains of Central Asia, a place where a wild, bitter root fought the elements long before human eyes ever looked upon it.
Garlic did not conquer the world through natural propagation. It made a silent pact with humanity. In exchange for our cultivation and care, it offered us nourishment, protection, and medicine. It fueled the builders of the pyramids, marched with legions across continents, guarded against the terrors of the Black Death, and redefined the global kitchen. Every clove planted today is a living clone of that ancient wild ancestor. It carries within its genetic code the memory of every empire that tended it, every hand that planted it, and every season it weathered.
It crossed every ocean, shattered every social boundary, and bridged every cultural divide. What the powerful once scorned as vulgar, the world ultimately embraced as universal. The next time you hold a bulb of garlic in your kitchen, remember, you are not just holding an ingredient. You are holding one of the greatest traveling companions in human history. From a wild mountain weed to the undisputed king of the global table, the humble bulb proved that true power doesn't come from size or strength. It comes from the ability to endure. If you enjoyed uncovering the hidden story of the world's most powerful bulb, hit like, subscribe, and share your favorite garlic traditions in the comments below. Until next time, keep exploring the history hidden in plain sight.